Hello and welcome to the video tutorial series on how to make a Chrome extension. In this video, we're going to set up the folder structure and the necessary files for the Chrome extension. So as you can tell, I have a folder named global-entry-drops. I'm using I think this is called Kebab case here, but you can call it anything you want. And now in this folder, I'm going to create my Chrome extension project. So all of the files, the code, the settings, configurations, images, they're all going to live in this folder. Everything we do from now on is going to be in this folder. So the first thing I'm going to do is create probably one of the most important parts of this Chrome extension, which is the manifest file. So the way I do that is I just create a new file here in VS Code called Manifest.json. Now the manifest file is kind of a way for Chrome to figure out the internals of your application. In here we'll have some configuration things like the name of the Chrome extension, description, the version, the icons, what permissions you need, some other script names that are being declared in here. Various other kinds of information will be stored in this file. This entire thing, as you can tell by the extension, is going to be a JSON, so we'll have our opening and closing braces. The first thing we want to do is define the version of the manifest. This is going to be 3, which is the latest one. This is a Google set version. So number 2 is being deprecated and number 3 is going to be the new one. The next thing we're going to do is write down the name of the app. So I've titled this Global Entry Drops because that's what we're doing here. If you haven't watched the first video, in that video I explained everything that we're building, the app, and how we're going to do it. So make sure you watch that one before you watch this. Now we want a description of what the app does. This is just a longer description outside of the name. Find global entry interviews that meet your selection criteria. Next we'll define the version of the app, which is going to be different than the manifest version. This is our own defined version. Next, we want to define actions. Now, actions are things like the pop-up window. This is kind of the only thing we'll really be using this for. So I'm going to define action here, and then I'm going to have a JSON object. I'm going to specify the default pop-up, and that is going to be popup/popup.html. The default pop-up is showing a path to a pop-up folder with the popup.html. Now the pop-up is what we call the little window where the user is going to interact the most. So this little thing up here, which you click on, pops up this little window, and this entire thing is an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript package. And so what we need to do is specify the HTML in here. As part of the HTML, we will include the CSS and the JavaScript. So we don't need to specify that within the project manifest.json. We just need to know where the popup.html is going to be and then write that in. So as you can tell, I have the pop-up here in popup/popup.html. So let's go ahead and create that folder. And inside of here, let's create the new file, popup.html. This is going to be the window that we just saw. Now we need the icons. Now the icons is what you'll be using to define what the application icon will look like. So this right here is an icon. This is stored as part of the Chrome extension package, and we need to tell the manifest.json where to find this. So I'm going to make a new folder here called images. Inside of here, I'm going to include some icons. Now I already have icons, and I'll include them as part of the project. You can find them below in the description, but if you have your own icons, you can use that too. I imagine most of you are probably going to use your own projects. There are 4 versions that Chrome really likes, which is 16, 32, 48, and 128 pixels, and preferably in PNGs. I'm going to go ahead and import my images right now, and then I'll define them inside of the manifest icons. All right, so you can see that I have the icons specified here. Icon -16, 32, 48, and 128. This is kind of the naming scheme that I see Chrome extension apps use, so that's what I'll be following. Now I have to define these various sizes within the manifest itself. Here I'll write images/icon-16.png, and then I will create a couple of more here, 32, 48, 128. It knows where to find the icons here in the images folder. What we need is a background script. Now the background script is going to be a very important part of our app. It kind of is what runs in the background when the pop-up is not visible, or even actually when it's visible, you can have something run in the background. So this is important because as part of our app, we want to run an API call basically like every 1 to 2 seconds, and we can't do that in the pop-up extension window. We'll talk more about why that is, but for right now, just remember that the pop-up window only exists when it's open. When the user opens it, it's visible here and the JavaScript is running. When it's closed, the popup.js is not going to run anymore. So we need something to run on the outside, and that's what we're going to call the background script. So here we're going to call this a service worker, and we're going to call this background.js. I'm just going to put that there in the root folder, background.js here. Going to leave that empty. And we also want to specify that it is a type of module. So this just lets us use some of the new ES5 syntax, which makes it very easy for us to write code. And finally, we're going to have a permissions block. Chrome extensions can't have permissions just to anything, anywhere. They need to specify exactly what permissions they need for security and privacy reasons. For right now, I'm just going to specify the storage permission because we're going to be storing and retrieving data, but we will be adding more permissions to this, especially when we create notifications. Great, we have our Manifest.json file created. We have our images. We have our Popup.html window created. That's empty. The background.js is empty as well. The last thing I want to do is create a new folder called API. This is going to be empty for now, but when we need to make calls to the global entry endpoint or need to fetch locations or interviews or anything like that, I'm going to make files inside of the API folder here and then call them from the background.js. For right now, leave this folder blank and we will fill it out. So now that we have our manifest, the icons and the background all set up, we can go ahead and import this into Chrome. You will see the icon pop up. So go to Chrome / extensions. You can just write that into the URL bar up here. Click on Load Unpacked. Navigate to wherever you stored your global entry drops, which I have navigated to. It automatically selected that for me. Go to the root folder, which contains everything, and then hit select. And voila, there you go. You can see it here, global entry drops. Make sure you're in developer mode. You see your description here. Let's go ahead and pin the icon to the extension bar. Click on this right here, and then hit the pin bar. There you go. So you won't really see anything here, of course, because it's empty. We just have a blank popup.html. But from now on, whenever we make a change, we just have to hit the refresh button here, and our changes will show up. And then we can inspect the console in the popup.html, and we'll also be able to inspect our background.js using service workers. We'll get into more details in the next upcoming video, so make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next videos. Thank you for watching.